If you find yourself having to resist the urge to lie, you suck at sales and you're trying to take the easy way. When you're great at sales, you don't need to lie. When you're great at sales, and you know you're great at sales, you'll say no more than customers will. You're saying no, and they're like, no, but I want to do it. And you're like, I don't think this is right for you. Don't just get good enough. Double down as a skill set. There are a handful of skill sets that'll pay you dividends for the rest of your life. Sales is one of them. As a skill, it's incredibly elastic. It has lots of application and applies a lot of different ways. So getting really good, not just good enough, but really good at sales is important. How do you know you're good at sales? What would be a leading indicator? Your paycheck, potentially. Not necessarily, though. How do we know we're good at something? Consistent replication, results, right? Your numbers. If you can teach it, you're probably consciously competent. You could be unconsciously competent where you're really good at it and you just don't know why. But if you're replicating yourself, it's probably because you're consciously competent. So yes, for sure. Your result though, your numbers will tell you. This is important because this is worth writing down as this is a fundamental principle. We must be real about where we're at while maintaining optimism about where we're going. And I frame it that way on purpose because some of us are optimistic about who we think we are. And maybe that seems like, well, isn't that important? What's the problem with being optimistic about who you think you are? It may not be accurate, right? Well, why does that matter? Well, let me give you an example. What if I optimistically believed I was already in Barstow in the pursuit of Vegas? What if you called me and you're in Vegas and you're like, yo, Sabs, when are you gonna get here? And I'm like, I'm just outside of Barstow. What are you gonna think? All right, cool. He'll be here in a few hours. A few hours goes by and I'm not there. And you call me again. You're like, yo, Sabs, where are you? I'm like, oh, dude, I'm actually at the In-N-Out in Barstow. You're like, what? You told me you were in Barstow 2 hours ago. Do you see how this becomes a problem? The navigation doesn't work. Why is that a problem? Well, if you think that you're better than you really are, you'll be confused when you aren't where you think you should be. And if head is severely up ass, what will you likely then assume? It's not you. It's the business, it's the climate, it's the economy, it's the fill in the fucking blank. You'll think it's not you. Why? Because your math was inaccurate from the very beginning. You thought you were better than you really are. And I can always tell, not always, but more often than not, when I ask somebody for their numbers or ask them how they're doing, what's the chances I already know? Pretty high. Why am I asking then? I want to see how accurate they are. How close are they to the truth about how good they're doing? So it's important to you. We must be real about where we're at while maintaining optimism about where we're going. But there isn't a lot of skill sets that are going to bear more fruit in your life than getting phenomenally good at sales. Because what is sales? Sales is the ability to communicate. At a time in which we may be at all-time lows for how horrific we are at communicating. The basis of most drama, fiction or nonfiction, right? Most movies, where's all the drama? The inability to communicate. How if you're like, why didn't you just tell him? Just say it, just fucking. We're horrific at it. Getting good at communication is a skill set that pays dividends across so many different areas of your life. If you're better at communicating, your relationships are going to be better, personal and professional. If you're good at communicating, it makes it much easier to be successful in business. And then sales becomes really easy. Okay, so going back to the side, how do you know you're good at sales? You don't have to lie. If you find yourself having to resist the urge to lie, you suck at sales and you're trying to take the easy way. When you're great at sales, you don't need to lie. When you're great at sales, and you know you're great at sales, you'll say no more than customers will. You're saying no, and they're like, no, but I want to do it. And you're like, I don't think this is right for you. So what am I saying? Don't just get good enough. Double down as a skill set. Well, how do you do that? How do you get better at sales? So I'm talking to leaders, which means at some level or another, you've demonstrated a level of competency. How do you continue to improve it? What's your path forward? How do you improve the skill set? We used to take repetition and go, yeah, repetition. There are people that have been in business for our 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, who are not further ahead. It's not a lack of repetition is why they're not ahead. It's not practice, but perfect practice that prevents piss poor performance. It's not just repetition. It's having the awareness to know what to do with those reps.
Hi, Sabastian here. Today's video was sponsored by our Patreon community. You can check out more content, behind the scenes stuff, exclusive content there, and join the community. I'll see you in there.